Right, hello guys, welcome back. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about Red Death, or Red Death Reformed, as it's newly come to be known. As I'm sure most of you are aware, just recently this week, several creators were invited to Bungie headquarters for an exclusive Final Shape preview event where they were shown and able to play a large portion of the expansion. And among the things they got to experience were the multitude of new exotic weapons. And to me personally, there was one weapon chief among them that stood out the most, which is of course the topic of today's conversation, Red Death Reformed. For a quick refresher, Red Death Reformed is a returning exotic pulse rifle from Destiny 1 that back then had the aptly named perk Red Death that read each kill heals you and speeds up reloads. Rather simple, but also rather effective. Back then in Destiny 1 there was no such thing as Well of Radiance, Cure, Restoration, Devour, Tier 100 Resilience, the list goes on. So it was pretty good for staying alive, and in the spirit of its predecessor, Red Death Reformed is following the same footsteps. Taking a look at the perks, the intrinsic reads, final blows with this weapon cure you and increase reload speed. And yes, you read that right, simply getting a kill will cure you. It's not like heal clip where you also have to reload to trigger the cure, and then the second part, reloading after final blows cures nearby allies. So much like heal clip, it also affects your allies, but for the user it just requires a kill. From the pre-release info, we also know that the cure on kill is cure ×2, though unfortunately I don't believe it's known whether the ally cure is ×2 or ×1, but given that it's at least ×1 for the same reason that heal clip is so strong, providing 60 HP to your allies is always nice. Its secondary perk, Inverse Relationship, also reads, when you deal damage with this weapon, it gains increased handling, takes reduced flinch, and movement speed is increased for a short time. When you are at reduced health, this weapon deals additional damage. The first part is simply a nice bump in stats, but the second is more interesting because it's been reported from the preview event that this health threshold is around half HP, and at that point, the maximum damage bonus is 40%, which is actually staggering for a primary weapon. So why am I saying that I'm never going to take it off and that you shouldn't too? A lot of you would be quick to point out that there is no AoE and clear perk on it, which is a big reason why exotic primaries like Sunshot, Graviton Lance, and Trinity Ghoul are so popular. So please, allow me to explain. First off, right off rip, cure ×2 on kill rather than reload is already pretty insane because for simply using the weapon as you normally would, it's healing you for 120 HP pretty much 24/7. And don't forget, pulse rifles are also getting a huge 38% buff to red bar enemies in the final shape, and plus the fact that Red Death is an exotic primary, so it will have that intrinsic 30% additional damage bonus to red bar enemies, which basically amounts to a lot of damage to red bars. Again, pair this with the fact that if you're not at full HP, you're giving yourself at least a 10% damage buff for your next kill, making the weapon even stronger. So, despite it not having an AoE perk like Incandescent for example, you should be starting to see why this weapon is going to be cracked for high-level endgame content. Still not convinced? Let's talk about two things, Ember of Empyrean and Ember of Benevolence. Ember of Empyrean is a solar fragment that lets you extend the duration of solar buffs like Radiant and Restoration, and what do you know, Red Death Reformed is a solar weapon. You simply need to find a way of providing yourself restoration ×1 or 2, such as via a healing grenade or aspect like Sol Invictus. Then every kill you get with Red Death will refresh your restoration timer and keep you full healed for as long as there are ads to keep killing. Okay, that's pretty nice. Now let's talk about Ember of Benevolence. As I'm sure a lot of you are aware, Ember of Benevolence grants additional base grenade, melee, and class ability regeneration rate for 6 seconds after applying a multitude of solar buffs to your allies, with Cure being included on the list. The exact amount is actually a 400% regeneration rate bonus, which if you're starting to see where I'm going with this, should hopefully convince you even more. Because of the built-in ally Cure, you'll be proccing Benevolence after every single reload as long as you're near at least one ally. And don't worry, assuming the radius is comparable or identical to heal clip, you have a very forgiving 15-meter radius on said cure. This is where the lack of an AoE add clear perk is remedied because you'll be constantly refreshing your strong solar abilities like Touch of Flame solar grenades or soon to be buffed Consecration melees. Not to mention, if you combine it with heat rises on Warlock and get your kills while airborne, you'll be fully recharging your melee within 5 kills. Now, this is where we're going to go into spoiler territory about the catalyst, so if you don't want to know what this does yet, skip to the end of this chapter. Last warning for spoilers. Okay, so in the big Sony Final Shape leak, the alleged functionality of the Red Death catalyst was revealed. Do take this with a grain of salt, but it reads as follows. Final blows charge this weapon. When this weapon is charged, the next round fired becomes a healing turret. So, why is this important? Well, If this is indeed the catalyst, it will simply make it even easier to get a restoration loop going, because assuming the healing turret is identical to the one provided by the Edge of Intent Warlock exotic glaive, each healing seeker will provide you with at least 6 seconds of restoration ×1 that you can then extend with Ember of Empyrean, just like we talked about before. This just removes the need to run a healing grenade or specific aspect like heat rises to generate a restoration loop in the first place, but you could also double up on both for even more consistency. Okay, spoilers over, so what have we learned so far? You get insane healing on kill, massively increased damage to red bar enemies, and a very big increase to ability regeneration rate. Surely that's it, right? Well yeah, that's basically the whole gist, though I did want to leave a final few notes on new AoE ability options to really put the nail in the coffin that this isn't a weak primary because of its lack thereof. As we all know, Prismatic is the brand new subclass releasing in the final shape, and with it comes a brand new state of power known as Transcendence. When popping Transcendence, we now know that it instantly refreshes all of your abilities, provides a small 5% weapon damage bonus, and also massively accelerates the regeneration rate of said abilities, which if you build into correctly can substitute the lack of AoE that Red Death has. The goal here would be to spam Transcendence as much as possible by building into it with the new fragments revealed to us in the preview. Facet of Devotion will grant bonus light energy by killing enemies affected by stasis or strand debuffs, which on Prismatic Warlock can be easily achieved with Arcane Needle spreading Unravel. Facet of Grace allows kinetic damage as well as super kills to grant bonus light and dark energy. Facet of Honor makes it so collecting an elemental pickup grants bonus energy to the matching element. And finally, Facet of Sacrifice allows ability kills while affected by light buffs like Restoration to grant bonus darkness energy. All of these together should hopefully result in achieving rapid Transcendence, but of course it will require some hands-on testing, though do expect a build on this within the first few days of launch. If Prismatic is too much for you to think about, don't worry, I have yet another solution. Remember Starfire Protocol? Well, it might just be back next season. Just yesterday, we were shown the brand new artifact perks for the final shape, and credit to Ritz on Twitter, but he spotted that Radiant Orbs, a perk that makes it so picking up an orb of power while on a solar or prismatic subclass makes you radiant, and the second half of Shield Crush, while you have amplified or radiant, your grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage, could actually synergize very nicely together with Starfire Protocol. So, if you pair both of these mods with Starfire and Ember of Benevolence, kills while in your rift will recharge your grenades, reloading after said kills will grant cure to your allies and thus trigger the increased regen, and the artifact perk also kicks in provided you make yourself radiant, which could be super spicy for unlimited grenade regen. But again, this will require some hands-on testing. The main point I'm trying to make is that come final shape there are going to be infinite ways of making up for that lack of AoE damage, so you shouldn't have to worry at all about it. The weapon on its own is still going to be incredibly strong, and I'm most likely going to be running it for the day 1 raid race, since because it's also an exotic primary, it will generate heavy ammo find bricks more often than any other weapon type. Plus the fact that you can pair that with a kinetic trace and cenotaph mask and become an unkillable heavy ammo printer for your team. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this breakdown on why Red Death is going to become a top meta pick come final shape, and I'll see you in the next one. If you made it this far, thank you so much. Your support means the world. And if you're really into the content I create, consider becoming a member of the channel, which not only lets you support me in the best way possible, it also nets you a whole host of awesome perks along with it. A massive shout out to these members up on screen, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.